13-1. 13-1. Yeah, my best record. But anyway, let's go live and talk about it.
Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays. 365, we making up plays. You talking the game, get you to the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics never the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, they working your faces. Grace up the field, so tie the laces. Whole sports all plays. Network. Whole sports all plays. Network. We on top of our game. Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode from the All Sports All Plays Network. This is the Football Frenzy show coming on every Monday live right here, right after the Monday Night Football game. I am your host, Nathaniel McQuirt, going solo today just like last week. And man, was it a great week for me as I went 13-1 for my picks, with the only game that getting wrong was not Miami Jacksonville, believe it or not. Actually, it was Buffalo Tennessee Monday Night Football, but we'll talk about that in just 1 second. Going into Thursday, real quick, the final score of that one, another exciting game to watch, was Buccaneers versus Eagles. Everyone thought that was going to be a blowout. Everyone thought. I mean, it was an easy pick for Tampa to use, but everybody thought it was going to be like a 31-3 game, 31-13. Anyway, everybody thought it was going to be at least 20 points. But the final score of that game ended up being 28-22. I think, to tell you the truth, Tom Brady likes to keep games close that are, especially during the primetime matchups. Week 1, we saw 31-29 final score of that matchup against Dallas. Now, you go in, and now you face Philadelphia week 6. I don't know why they scheduled it that way, but okay. Bucks versus Eagles week 6, and 28-22 is the final score. Tom has not thrown many interceptions in this game. Well, in this season, he has thrown 2 against Dallas and 1 against the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles go down to 2-4, while the Tampa Bay Buccaneers go to 5-1 as their record. I think, to tell you the truth, I don't expect with this team to have as a successful season compared to next week. I mean, compared to last year. You have Richard Sherman, but he's the only person on that roster that was not part of the team last year. And he's hurt. So it's not that this is not a solid team. They have very talented wide receivers. Running game, But my concern with this team is that people have film. People have film on this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team that it was a completely new roster coming into last year. Especially they've shown that last year when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers played the New Orleans Saints. We do have a couple of comments, but I'll go up into there in a second. New Orleans was the only New Orleans last year, final of that was 38-23. I think really the biggest problem with it was team chemistry. It's not really that the team was lacking. The team had issues in the locker room type of chemistry. It's just that they didn't really know each other. They haven't really played with each other before that Saints game in week 1 of last year. You go into this year, they've already known each other, so chemistry is not really an issue. They just came off of a Super Bowl win. But other teams know how they were successful. So, and I'm not saying that this isn't a Super Bowl team. I'm not. I'm not saying that this is not my favorite to be a Super Bowl winning team, but they are. I think they have digressed. I guess that's really what I'm trying to say. This is the last Thursday night football game for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but I don't think that this is the last primetime game for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Next week you have Chicago Bears, but if Nick Foles is starting, Tom Brady always plays Nick Foles tough. I think now I'm double checking right now as we speak, but I think Sunday Night Football, Washington plays Tampa. So this won't be the last. This won't be the last. Oh, no. It wasn't Washington that played Tampa. It was New Orleans that ended up playing Tampa. So this isn't the last primetime game. Now, it is the Saints and not the NFC East. Dallas is improved so much. But Philly is still the same in Philadelphia. Is this still the same Philadelphia team as last year? They do have a better. They did have a better receiving core, but Ertz is gone. Zach Ertz is gone. He's over with Arizona now. They're in a rebuilding process. Jalen Hurts, he's a good quarterback that can give you fantasy points, but he's not a quarterback that can give you wins. So I don't see, speaking of wins for this Philadelphia Eagles team, I don't see many coming up. You play the Raiders, that's an easy loss. I think that you'll win next week, the week after, playing Detroit. Yeah, you lose next 4 games. You have the Raiders, you have the Lions, you have the Chargers, and you do have the struggling Broncos, but their defense is. The Ravens have scored more points against the Chargers than they have against this Denver Broncos team, which offense is. They're lacking receiving depth because all of their guys are hurt, except for Jerry Jeudy's probably going to be coming back by this week. KJ Hamler is out till the end of the season. Courtney Sutton, he's been playing, but he hasn't been playing up to the level as he has been within this past couple of games because he's dealing with his little problems himself. I think slowly as time goes on, the running back is running back one position is going to move hands to Javonte Williams, and it's going to be less and less Melvin Gordon. I see Melvin Gordon out this year. But anyway, moving away from my team and talking about last week. Kansas City kept it very close within this first half, and they shouldn't have. They held second half. Washington didn't score anything to make it a final score of 31-13. Yes, Chiefs got the win. I get that. But they're another team like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that have been struggling. They have been struggling because other than the offensive line, nothing has changed. They can't stop anyone. This is the least number of points that a team has scored against them all season. They can't stop anyone. The Eagles, we just talked about the Philadelphia Eagles, but the Eagles have scored at least 30 points on the Chiefs. The Eagles, out of all people, that I've already said that was a rebuilding team. I think Washington, to tell you the truth, is more of an endangered team. I think Philadelphia, I'm just going to go out and say it. I think Philadelphia is going to have a better record this year than Washington. Darrell Williams, great game. He scored 2 touchdowns for the Chiefs. Nicole Hardman, Nicole Hardman was the least. He ran for 6 yards. CEH can never stay healthy. Going into this trade deadline, rumor has it that Kansas City is probably going to be getting a running back to fill in with this Kansas City Chiefs team. Now, I understand. My point is that the Chiefs their Chiefs defense can't stop anyone. That's their biggest focus. But at the same time, they need more than one player. They need an entire army to upgrade that Chiefs defense. And I don't think they can get it done by then. I think they can fill up that running back position, or at least make it better. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is easily a top 20 player when healthy. But is that when healthy? Is that when healthy? That is the question. And to tell you the truth, I don't think he is used the right way. So running back is their second biggest need besides the defense. If we were heading into offseason, yeah, I would focus more on the defense first. But I would flip it. Because you don't have 11 guys that are running backs starting for the team. You might have 4. Because, looking at this game, Darrell Williams, Patrick Mahomes ran for a little bit, but Jerick McKinnon and Nicole Hardman. But you're not going to have 11 guys that is going to go out there and run for the team. Now, talking about Bills versus Titans real quick before we're talking about the picks for this week. I don't know what the Bills were thinking at the end of the game. Yeah, they were dead. Second to last drive. Bills were leading. They were leading by 4. It was 31-27. That was the score. Buffalo had the ball. It was the second to the last drive of the game. And Josh Allen spent 4 plays in a row trying to throw deep. One was almost picked off. 2 of them were incomplete. Well, actually, all 4 of them were incomplete. But 2 of them were no one were close to catching it. Not even for the Titans. And then that 4th play, Stephon Diggs caught it, but it was out of bounds. He went 35 for 47 with 353 yards. 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Devin Singletary, I think that's really, he almost, if it wasn't for a foul, he would have gotten the punt return for a touchdown. And that would have probably won the game. I think Buffalo's decision-making, especially from Josh Allen, is what cost them. And the penalty itself. This was the one game, and I'm not even Dolphins versus Jaguars, but this was the one game, like I said, before I started the intro music to the show. This was the one game I got wrong. One game shy of having a perfect 14-0 record. Dang, I cannot let this go. I'm probably going to be talking about this for the next few weeks. Titans go 4-2, and their next game is against the Kansas City Chiefs. Like I said with this Kansas City Chiefs team, they can't stop anyone. And Tennessee might have Julio out that game, might have A.J. Brown out that game. The receiving core is a big need coming into the season. But, it's not a big name coming into this game or coming into the 2023 season, and that's Derrick Henry. You look at Tennessee within this matchup, he went 20 carries for 143 yards. To tell you the truth, Derrick Henry, the running game is really what won the game for the Titans, other than the decision-making by the Bills. 3 touchdowns from Derrick Henry and 1 from Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill as a quarterback, he went 18 for 29 with 216 yards, 1 interception in the game, but 0 touchdowns. I want to point that out. He got 34 points this game, a couple of field goals too. Titans did, and none of them were by the passing game. My point is, they need wide receivers, but they don't at the same time. It helps to get them, but with teams like the Buffalo Bills, it didn't really matter. They probably have one of the best running back combos when healthy, other than maybe Cleveland, with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt out there. Now, let's move away from this week and move away from last week. let's move that away. Still irritated at the Bills-Titans game. And let's talk about my picks for next week. To start this off, Denver has an away game, Thursday Night Football, and it's the Cleveland Browns. As much as I want to go with the home team here, I went with the home team every single game except for the Raiders. I went with them when they played the Ravens. I went with them when they played the Steelers. I did not go with them when they played the Raiders. And I want to keep my undefeated Thursday Night Football streak alive. So, as much as I want to go with Denver, I just can't. Cleveland wins this one, but I will say this. You look at the Steelers game. Most of the points that most of the touchdowns, most of the points that were scored by the Broncos were in that fourth quarter, except for a field goal, actually. So, because at one point it was 24-3. You look at last week. You look at last week, which I'm about to pull that up real quick. The Broncos scored 10 points heading into the fourth quarter, but then they ended up scoring 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter to make it a 34-24 game. I think we're going to see a repeat of what we saw this last 2 weeks, where it should be a blowout match, but Denver's going to end up scoring a couple of touchdowns towards the end to make it closer than what it really should be. I think Cleveland wins this. I'm going to go 27-24. Now, they did go off of a 2-game losing streak, but you're talking about the Chargers and you're talking about the Arizona Cardinals here. Next up, I touched this a little bit after the Browns and Broncos game. You have the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Tennessee Titans. Still frustrated with this. I don't like picking this game because you have the Titans who won Monday Night Football, and they were the one team that ended up taking my perfect streak away from me in week 6. But at the same time, you have Kansas City Chiefs, division rival. I covered a lot about both teams earlier in the show. This is going to be very heavy on the passing game. I can tell you that now. But at the same time, going into the Chiefs game with the Washington football team, there was one player in particular. It was actually Travis. No, it was Tyreek Hill. He ended up playing against the Washington football team, but he was questionable to play that game. I'm not saying that I don't think he's going to play against Titans, but if something happens, which I can totally see it, if something happens and he goes down with the injury, hurt in practice, and he won't be able to play against Titans, they lose. They go with 3-4 record, worse than what happened last year. And yes, I'm including last year's Super Bowl. They already have a worse regular season record than last year. Last year, they lost twice. Once to the Raiders, once to the Chargers. This year, they have lost to the Bills, Chargers, and Ravens. Going into this Titans game Titans, Derrick Henry's going to get a lot of yards. I think that this game is going to end up being Titans winning this one 35-33. All right, next up you have the Washington football team. They played the Green Bay Packers. There's not much that I need to say on this. Honestly, I will say one thing, actually. Just a little bit of fantasy advice, which we'll talk about that towards the end of the show. But if you don't start anybody from Washington heading into this game, no quarterback, no wide receiver, no tight end, nobody. Don't start anyone. Because I can tell you right here that this is probably going to be worse than Bills Texans. It's going to not be close. It's going to be a blowout. I warned you right now. If you have to start anybody from the game, start them from the Packers. I think the Packers are going to end up pulling this off. You know what? I'm just going to say it. 45-0. I'm going to go 45-0 here. All right. Next up is probably my favorite game to talk about this week. I went against my gut in week 3 and week 4 with the Cardinals and Rams, and then also Bengals and Steelers. Both games I ended up being wrong. You go into week week 5. And I just had this crazy feeling that I should learn my lesson, and I should pick Chicago to beat the Las Vegas Raiders. Well, I was right. And just like I had a crazy feeling last week to pick Jacksonville over Miami. By the way, people including Chicago Bears fans, this was Monday. This was the Monday, just like I am doing it today. This was the Monday. And pointing out to Chicago, Las Vegas, we didn't even know who was going to be starting at quarterback, and I just had this feeling that I should go with that team. But going into week 7, and this is the game where I just had this gut feeling that I should go with what the opposite of what people are saying. As Mike talked about last show on the ASAP Real Talk, I'm just going to say it, Baltimore. I think they're going to have a loss next week. Now, don't get me started. Both teams really solid. Probably going to be maybe in the playoffs this year. Ravens are my favorite to win the division, with the Cincinnati Bengals as the wildcard team. That being said, I got to go with my gut. And that's something that was proven right the past couple of weeks. So I'm going to go Bengals in this game 31-29 over the Ravens. Carolina Panthers are up next. They play the New York Giants. They start off with a 3-0 record, and with the Jets, with the Saints, and with the Houston Texans. New York Giants, like the Houston Texans, are hurt with their quarterback. Hurt with their quarterback and hurt with The starting running back is out too. Carolina Panthers, they don't have Chris McCaffrey. Well, they haven't had Chris McCaffrey in the past 3 weeks. Let me double check that. Let me fact check myself real quick. I don't think Carolina. Oh, Carolina had a Carolina did not have. Yeah, they had Chuba Hubbard last week. If Chuba Hubbard ends up getting that running back number 1 spot again this week from the past 4 weeks, even though it's against the Giants, who also has a quarterback hurt problem, and I'm sorry, they don't have a quarterback. They have a running back hurt problem with Saquon. I can totally see New York pulling I don't think it's going to happen. I can totally see New York pulling an upset here. Because Chuba Hubbard is very overrated. I mean, he can run. He can run in between tackles. He has a speed. I get that. But one thing he cannot do, and he'd be perfectly fine. I would be perfectly okay with it if he ends up getting the number 2 spot. If he goes with RB2. But the one thing Chuba Hubbard cannot do is block. And that's going to be needed with this team. That is going to be insane. Big time needed. That's what has been hurting the past 3 weeks. With when they went up against the teams like the Minnesota Vikings, with Minnesota, with Dallas, with Philadelphia even, is that Chuba Hubbard cannot block. If they started somebody else, I'm forgetting who the other guy that they have besides McCaffrey, who's down hurt with an injury. If they have somebody else, that third guy, and they start him at running back, I can't see New York end up pulling this out. But I can if Chuba Hubbard starts. I know I keep being repetitive, but it's still a big time factor, and I wouldn't be shocked. All right, next up is the Miami Dolphins, who just came off an embarrassing loss in London against the Atlanta Falcons, who neither team have been having let's just say they haven't been having a great season. Tua's back from his injury. He played last week when they were playing up against the Jaguars. Both teams have to do a lot of traveling. Falcons, they came. Well, okay, they had the bye. That's probably they had a bye, so they didn't actually play anyone last week. They go up, they play the Dolphins, who had to travel overseas. And this is, to be honest, this is going to be a rough game for Miami. And I think the Atlanta Falcons are going to win this. I'm going to go 31-20. All right, the New York Jets. There's not a lot to be said because Bill Belichick has a really good record. Not one quarterback has ever beaten Bill Belichick as a rookie, except for, I think, Russell Wilson was the only one. But I might be wrong on that. If that ended up being the case, if I am wrong, there could possibly be. He might not have even beaten Russell Wilson his rookie year either. And beaten New England his rookie year either. So, really, there's nothing much being said. I think New England comes out with a victory again. New England sweeps the Jets. Pats sweep the Jets. And I'm actually going to even go as far as they keep the same score as the last time, which was 24-12. All right. I touched a little bit about this. I touched about this when I was talking about the Chiefs. And I touched about this when I was talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But the Philadelphia Eagles, they play against the Las Vegas Raiders. One of the great things that the Raiders had in their advantage was when they faced up against us last week. And I'm not saying that this was the biggest reason why they beat Denver, but I'm just saying that they had this to their advantage. It was a new coach. It was a new coach. It's been a new coach since last two. So it's a week ago from tomorrow. And I don't think he's ever been an NFL head coach before. That's the one thing that the Raiders have that neither the Chiefs or the Buccaneers have. Raiders, I think, to be honest with you, they do lack an offensive line. It's been rebuilt completely. It's been built a new offensive line in the 2018-2019 season. That one has been demolished and been rebuilt again. And this year's Las Vegas Raiders roster, they go up against Philadelphia, a team that has been struggling on all sides other than quarterback fantasy points. I think that the Raiders get this win, and it's not going to be close. I'm going to go 47 to 20. No, not 47-20. I'm actually going to go less than that. Go 47-16. Raiders have the favor. Raiders go up to a 5-2 start after their only two losses were the Chargers and the Bears. But really, that's the only. Raiders and the Chargers are my two favorites to make the play to win the division this year. Chiefs not going to happen. Denver, it hasn't happened since 2015. All right, next up you have the Rams, who came off of a big victory, blowout fashion victory against the New York Giants with a record of 38-13. That's the final. They go up against Detroit, who Detroit for the past 6 weeks has lost every single game. They're the last team to not get a win after what happened to Jacksonville last week. I think the Rams are going to win this game. One thing that Detroit has that New York does not have, and I won't even say that Detroit has this, but they're better at this than New York, is protection. Detroit sucks at it, but at least they did draft Penny Sewell from last year. That was the best guy that, by the way, that was the best offensive lineman that Detroit has ever had since they drafted Stafford. And Stafford is no longer on the team anymore. Detroit's situation is bad. They're my favorites to get the number one pick in the draft type of bad. It's not going to be the Jets. It's not going to be the Jets. It's going to be the Lions. Why do they always lie? Oh, sorry. I had to do that. This is going to be blowout fashion, but it's going to be closer blowout fashion than when the Rams played the Giants. Rams win this one. I'm going to go 38-20. Another thing about Detroit is they didn't do this against Cincinnati, but they did this against the Baltimore Ravens, and they also did this against the Minnesota Vikings as well. They've lost games in the past that should have gone their way. Justin Tucker broke the NFL record for the longest field goal when they played the Detroit Lions. Minnesota, like with the Ravens, came off of a last-second drive. Their win came off of a last-second drive as well. I can see this, even though I have this being a blowout, I can see this being close. I saw last week's game coming close, even though Cincinnati still ended up with the win. I can see this one too. All right. I think that this next game that we're talking about should be the only NFL game, only team in the season, this entire season for the Chicago Bears roster to start Nick Foles. Because like the New York Giants, Nick Foles always has a great game against Tom Brady. Last year, when Nick Foles was the starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears, up against Tom Brady forgot how to count to 4. Anyway, that's joking all aside. Super Bowl, it was Nick Foles, his Philadelphia Eagles, that Nick Foles was the starting quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles when they ended up winning the Super Bowl. I'm going to go as far out and say, even though I see Justin Fields starting, I think that this will be the only game that they would have better luck starting Nick Foles. If Nick Foles starts, which I don't think it's going to happen, if Nick Foles starts, I see the Bears winning this game 2019. It's not high, not low, but it keeps it in with like a 1-point difference. Otherwise, Bears are going to score more points, but so are the Bucs. Bucs are going to end up beating them probably around, 15, 20 points. If Justin Fields starts, I'd probably go 38-23. Bucs win. That's really the only thing I had to say about that. Because going into the next game, the last game that's not a primetime game to talk about for these picks, there's nothing much to be said. It's the Texans. They go up against the Arizona Cardinals, who are undefeated. Now, I will say this about the team. Arizona has probably played their hardest stretch of the schedule throughout the entire season. You go up against the Texans next week. That's an easy break. That's an easy dub. They're going to go 7-0. But after that, you play teams like the 49ers again, which, yeah, I can see 49ers. I tell you what, I can see 49ers in the pulling that one off too. Cardinals losing that one off. But then you have the Panthers, who are Christian McCaffrey hurt. Is hurt with Christian McCaffrey. You have the Seahawks, which Russell Wilson's hurt. You have the Chicago Bears. You have the Rams. You have the Lions. You have the Colts. You have the Cowboys. And you have the Seahawks again. There's a lot of the remaining stretch of games. My ceiling for this team with the remaining stretch, and I'm not talking the previous games, I'm not included in this. My ceiling is that the Cardinals are going to get 2 losses. One of them go to the Packers. One of them goes to they split the Rams. Dallas have been playing phenomenal. I'm not going to lie to you about that. I mean, when that time comes, it's probably going to be America's game of the week. I see Dallas being a team that makes it to the playoffs, but repeat the same old curse of not going to the conference championship game. The 49ers, I can see that one being a win too. And then the other games that I see being a win after that are, the other teams I see being a loss, but I think are going to be a win, are both games against Seattle and then Carolina if McCaffrey comes back. But at the very most, I see 15-2. They have an easy stretch that, like with the Phoenix Suns, now I'm not saying that their run in the playoffs is mostly dealt because of injury, but I'm saying that the injuries helped. And I have a feeling that it's going to help with the Cardinals within the stretch of the regular season as well. The only thing left to talk about after that is the primetime games. The 49ers, they have a home team. They have the home field advantage against the Colts. Colts have been on a roll, beating the Texans yesterday, 31-3, which I think that was the score that I predicted as well, 31-3. Colts, they go up, place the 49ers. 49ers have been better about this compared to last year, but they have dealt with some of their full of injuries as well. 49ers, when they played the Cardinals, they ended up starting Trey Lance, which, I mean, it's been okay. He had an okay game, 15-29 for 192 yards. Not bad for his first career NFL start. I mean, he did play a little bit before. He ended up continuing the game when the 49ers played the Seattle Seahawks. But then now they go up against the Colts, who had been on a roll the past couple of games. I think the Colts are going to continue that. They end up. I think that they're actually going to tie. Going into 500 ball, they're going to lose the first four. They lost the first 4 games, but I think they're going to lose the next. I mean, win the next 2. Excuse me. I keep saying they're going to lose it, but I think they're going to win the next 2. Now, next week is going to be rough because they do end up playing the Tennessee Titans, but I still see that ending up being a win. Colts win this 28-17. All right, the last game is the hometown, but not team I root for, but still hometown Seattle Seahawks. They are the home field team. They play the New Orleans Saints. Thing to look for, Russell Wilson, like last week, is out hurt with a finger injury. 3rd game that he's going to be missing in his career. Now, keep in mind, last time these two teams played, even though Drew Brees has retired, the last time these two teams played, it was Teddy Bridgewater that ended up starting at quarterback the last time, and they ended up winning that. I don't remember what the final score of that game was, but it was very, very close. I think that this one is going to be very similar. The New Orleans Saints have been this off and on and off and on and on, off and on and off and on team. They gave the New York Giants their only win of the season. Then they go out, they score 30-plus points on the Washington football team. So is this one going to be that game where they're off again? Now keep in mind, their Saints, like the Falcons, had the bye last week. So it's going to help New Orleans in that advantage. I still think that this game shouldn't be close because of Wilson's injury. But if Wilson was not hurt, and I don't care about their running back situation as well, I'm predicting this is going to be one of the off games for Jameis Winston, especially since I see this more being a trap game. They do play the Buccaneers after that. I'm going to go with the New Orleans Saints, and I'm going to go 33-30, similar to what we saw the last time these two teams played. Now that leads to the last part of the show, which is the Ace All Sports All Plays Fantasy Football. I'm going to pull up the roster in just 1 second. I need to get it set up, though. With my fantasy football league, I ended up losing again, so I'm not really having a great year, unlike last year when I ended up winning the whole thing. I did do one mistake this week, however, and I needed to have a different defense. Courtney Sutton had a great game, but Jamal Williams, no. Darren Waller, Dalton Schultz, they had an okay game. But let me pull that up on the big screen here. Invite No, I'm not going to do the invite. Share screen. Right here. So, with this match, this next match here, pulling this up, JNS ended up getting the win here. He goes to 5-1 of the season. I go to 2-4, unfortunately. I still have the two best two out of the top 5 tight ends of statistically speaking. There's nothing really that I take that back. I should have started Kenyon Drake. I would have won that. Peyton Barber, I probably going to cut him next week. He hasn't really been doing anything. I shouldn't have followed that advice. Sam Darnold, okay, get right games. So there's really, other than the Peyton Barber exchange and the Cole Beasley swap with Emmanuel Sanders, that's really the only key difference here. Next after that, Freddie Henderson, he ends up with another win, and this is a complete blowout, 142-84. Both guys do not have their bench completely filled out, but there really isn't anything else that I could have done to maybe improve that. Actually, I take that back. J.D. McKissick over Christian McCaffrey because Christian McCaffrey's hurt. All right, up next actually is William Morgan versus Brad Cruz. Dallas defense was probably the biggest key for William. He ends up winning this game barely, 108-104. The final score on this. Trevor Lawrence had a great fantasy point game. James Conner, Latavius Murray, Allen Robinson out there. Jalen Waddle was the Miami's leading scorer right there. I think still every single week, I say this every single week, instead of having Trevor Lawrence, he should have Derek Carr. I know he's a big Jacksonville Jaguars fan, but still. Jordan Jean Lewis lost to Bill Bear this week. With this game, Bill made the adjustments. Honestly, the big change that I would have done, the big difference here, is Damian Harris over Trevor Hubbard. I've already said how I feel about Trevor. He sucks. I mean, Chuba did all right this game, but it wasn't enough to. I mean, he did get the win, 106-95 here, but other things that I would have done. Jordan Jean Lewis again did not update his roster. Jacksonville wide receiver Marvin Jones Jr. Could have put him in instead of Calvin Ridley. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he was out. Could have been A.J. Dillon in, and that would have made a difference. You could have put in Nicole Hardman. Rondell Stevenson was his leading rusher on the bench. All right, next up you have the big baller brand Mike Hughes. He went up against Alex Fleming. I'm not going to really cover this one too much because Alex, as you may have heard from last week, Alex ended up passing away. So I'm not going to cover this one too much. But on Mike's side, there really isn't a lot of depth on that bench. Sammy Watkins didn't have a great game. Ken Galladay didn't get any points. Cleveland Browns defense was worse. Henry Ruggs was probably the biggest player. So having him instead of Julio would have helped, I think, because Julio, as we brought up in the past, on the ASAP network, Julio is an older guy, and he's also in colder climate. So his mobility is going to hurt, especially coming into those plane rides. And I get it, the plane rides might have been a problem in Atlanta too, but at least you're playing in a dome in warmer weather. You're not playing in a dome over in Tennessee, and you're not playing in warmer weather in Tennessee. So if you play in a team like Dallas has a dome. I've never been inside the AT&T Stadium, but I've been outside of it. They have a dome. Mile High, Denver, not a good idea. Seattle's different because Seattle's right here out in Washington. We're protected by the ocean. So we're not going to now. If you talking about farther east Washington or farther east Oregon, or even and Oregon doesn't have an NFL team, but far east California, they're not going to get protected by the climate, especially northeast California. Protected by the ocean, I mean. But you go into West Washington, right there on the ocean. Now, even though you're way far up north, it's not going to be as bad as, say, Buffalo, as, say, Green Bay, as, say, Minnesota. Even though Minnesota has a dome. Detroit has a dome, but the weather conditions out there are worse than Atlanta, even out far west over here in the Seattle area. It rains a lot, but you're not going to get below freezing temperature. You might every now and then, you might have snow, like say once or twice a year, but you're not going to get that as much as out in Green Bay. And now, going into the last matchup here, Justin ends up with the win here over Williams' other NFL fantasy football team. And Justin, I think with William, he probably shouldn't have. He says he doesn't have shame in doing that, but I still understand why he has two fantasy football teams. That's just me. But anyway, that's all I have. You can find the Football Frenzy, Doug and I, with right here on the All Sports All Plays Network. This has been Nate the Great signing out. We'll see you next Monday.
All sports, all plays. Yeah. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365 365, we making a plays. We talking the game, get you through the days. Great high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays. Network. All sports, all plays. Network. We on top of our game. All sports, all plays.